The sun had barely risen when Leela gathered her courage, with act out of leaving the house, but before she left she wrote a letter on the kitchen counter. Her heart felt heavy, but the decision had been made long before this dawn. The morning mist enveloped her as she walked briskly down the familiar path, each step taking her further from the life she had known. Leela had been married to Michael for 10 years. They had met in college, where sparks flew between the quiet, studious girl and the charming, witty boy. They were inseparable from the start, their love story the stuff of novels. They married young, full of dreams and plans, their future a canvas they were eager to paint together. Their world was shattered when Michael was diagnosed with a rare condition that slowly stole his sight. At first, they fought it together, clinging to hope and each other. Leela became his eyes, describing the world in vivid detail, painting pictures with words. But as the darkness closed in, Michael withdrew into himself, consumed by bitterness and anger. Leela did everything she could to support him. She researched treatments, attended support groups, and held him through the long, tearful nights. But Michael pushed her away, unable to accept the hand fate had dealt him. The man she loved, once so full of light and laughter, became a stranger lost in the shadows. Months turned into years, and Leela found herself drowning in the weight of their broken dreams. She missed the man Michael used to be, missed the way his eyes would light up when he looked at her. But most of all, she missed herself, the vibrant woman she had been before the darkness descended. Finally, on that quiet morning, Leela made her choice. She could no longer bear the weight of their shattered life, the constant struggle against an enemy they couldn't defeat. She needed to find her own light again, to rediscover the woman buried beneath the layers of grief and despair. As she walked, the sun broke through the mist, its golden rays warming her skin. Leela stopped, closing her eyes and tilting her face to the sky. In that moment, she felt a flicker of something long forgotten, hope. She didn't know where this path would lead her, didn't know what the future held. But as she stood there, bathed in sunlight, she made a silent promise to herself. She would find her light again, no matter how long it took. And maybe, just maybe, Michael would find his way back to the world of the living, leaving the shadows behind. With a renewed sense of purpose, Leela continued down the path, the weight on her heart a little lighter. She didn't look back, didn't allow herself to dwell on what she was leaving behind. Instead, she focused on the road ahead, her steps firm and steady. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Leela felt a sense of freedom she hadn't known in years. She was no longer defined by the darkness that had consumed her life, no longer trapped in a world of shattered dreams. For the first time in a long time, Leela felt alive. And as she walked into the light of a new day, she knew that no matter what lay ahead, she would face it with courage and determination. Because she was a woman who had left her husband, not out of anger or resentment, but out of love for herself, for Michael, and for the possibility of a brighter tomorrow. One morning the ringing of the phone shattered the silence of Lila's small apartment. She glanced at the caller ID, her heart skipping a beat when she saw the name of Michael's doctor flashing on the screen. With trembling hands, she answered the call, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hello. Leela, it's Dr. Bennett." The voice on the other end was filled with a cautious hope. Lila's heart pounded in her chest. "Yes, doctor, what is it?" There was a pause, as if the doctor was carefully choosing his words. "We've been reviewing Michael's case, and there's a new treatment option that has shown promising results. It's experimental, but we believe there's a chance it could restore his sight." Lila's breath caught in her throat. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. "Restore his sight," she repeated, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes," Dr. Bennett confirmed. "It's not a guarantee, but the possibility is there. We'd like to bring him in for further tests and discuss the procedure with both of you." Tears welled up in Lila's eyes as she listened to the doctor's words. After years of darkness and despair, a ray of hope was shining through. She thanked the doctor, her voice choked with emotion, and hung up the phone. Without hesitation, Leela packed a bag and drove back to the house she had left behind. The note she had left on the kitchen counter fluttered in the breeze as she burst through the door, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. "Michael!" She called out, her voice echoing through the empty rooms. It wasn't long before Michael appeared, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. "Leela, what's going on?" Leela told him about the call from the doctor, about the possibility of restoring his sight. Michael stood frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief. "We have to go to the hospital," Leela said, her voice filled with determination. "We have to see if this is real, if there's a chance to bring back your sight." Michael hesitated, his fear and doubt palpable in the air. But then, something shifted in his eyes. She looked at him for the first time in years, and saw the love and hope shining in his gaze. "Okay," he said, his voice barely a whisper. With renewed determination, Leela helped Michael pack a bag, her hands trembling with excitement. Together, they drove to the hospital, their hearts filled with a mix of fear and hope. The tests were long and grueling, the waiting unbearable. But finally, the day of the procedure arrived. Leela held Michael's hand tightly as they wheeled him into the operating room, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. Hours passed like an eternity, each minute stretching into an eternity of waiting. And then, finally, the door to the operating room swung open, and the surgeon emerged, a smile on his face. "It was a success," he said, his voice filled with triumph. The procedure was a success. Tears streamed down Lila's face. Michael blinked, his eyes adjusting to the light for the first time in years. And then, slowly, he opened his eyes, his gaze meeting Lila's with a mix of wonder and love. "I can see," he said, his voice filled with awe. As they walked out of the hospital hand in hand, the sun shining brightly overhead, Michael couldn't help but feel a surge of pride and love for the woman by his side. She had been his rock, his guiding light through the darkest of times, and now, she had led him back into the light. Together, they faced the future, hand in hand, their hearts filled with a newfound hope and love. And as they walked down the path towards home, Michael knew that he was the luckiest man alive to have a woman like Leela by his side, brave, caring, and unwavering in her love.